Okay, we will begin. Just those that are listening on the recording. So the people want to know what's happening in Postville. There's a fire going on. So what's happening in Postville is that we're learning Torah and we're doing Q&A. As the fire is raging, we are doing our part to be Meisef and Kedusha and Eir Ruchni. They'll be mevatel this negative kind of Eir Gashmi. Okay, question. What's wrong with wearing a tie? And this guy has two other questions. We'll go one at a time. No one ever said there's something wrong with wearing a tie. Most Bachrim and Lubavitch today do not wear ties. However, there are some Bachrim that do wear ties. And the reason what the whole tie business is it's basically it's a more respectful way of a person getting dressed. And people have to be presentable the way they are, so they wear ties. And the Rebbe, as you know, wears a tie. And many shluchim wear ties as well for that reason. And the reason why there is a stigma, or you look at negative if a bacher randomly wears a tie, is because it's not regular. And even though some people like to say they're not racist, we are all naturally racist, which means to say we all think that whoever is different than us is weird, and that's why, since most of us don't wear ties, that's why we look at the person who wears a tie that's weird. And if you go to a place where everybody wears ties, they'll look at you as you're weird. Now, how did it happen? So, how did it happen that there was a switch from ties to no ties? So my understanding is that there was never a full-on thing to wear ties in Lubavitch. In Russia for sure not, because at that point in Russia and Poland, so earlier the Chassidim were in such a way that there was no shaykhis to gashmis, no interest in any kind of clothing. And even though it might not have been at such a high level, but because of the persecutions that was going on, no one had time to be into their clothing b'chlal. So I think either because you were too chassidish not to care about it, or because you were too busy to run away, it was never an issue. In America, classy, proper people wore ties. So there were some students in America, if I understand correctly, in the earlier years that wore ties, the Bachrim in Temchet Mimim in 770, if I understand correctly. But the Russians came and they were never into this chitzaynis kind of thing, so it slowly petered out and it slowly stopped becoming regular. However, when Bachrim went on Merkez Shlichus, went on Shlichus, over there, it was in the early years for sure, the Shluchim would go out and they would wear ties. There's a famous story that there was Levi Baumgarten says the story. Levi Baumgarten is the main Miftzah tank that goes out from Crown Heights every day to Manhattan. I mean, I don't know what today everything is changing, but for many years that was the Miftzah tank. So Levi Baumgarten has a famous story that he had a person, he had Bachrim that would come on his route, and they would go to different offices, and one day he sees one of the Bachrim is wearing a tie. Wakara, the strangest thing, so it's a fascinating story. This Bacher on his route, he had a person that he would go to him every week and ask him to put on tefillin. And this guy always said no. This particular Friday, the Bacher was going on his route, and there was a person on the street selling stuff like all you have in Manhattan all the time. And this guy was selling ties. And the guy offers the Bacher to buy a tie. And the Bacher says politely, not interested, $10, not interested, $5. The guy was making me crazy for $1, and finally the Bacher, you're making me crazy, fine, I'll give $1. I'm offering the numbers, 10, 5, 1, whatever. He went down a tremendous amount of price to get him to pay, just to buy a tie. The Bacher was, what's going on, whatever, he put on a tie. He walks into the office of this guy that never puts on tefillin, wearing his tie, because now he just happened to get a tie. And the guy says, I'll put on tefillin. Wow, first time ever, okay. And then he says, why? And he tells him this is the story. He says that I had a dream last night, and a rabbi came to me, the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him, I'm sending you a person every week to put on tefillin with you. How come you keep saying no? And this person told the Rebbe in his dream, you're sending me these bachim that are shlochs, they're not dressed properly, they don't even wear a tie. So guys, he has no class. I'm going to engage with such a kind of person. He woke up, and then the next day, the Rebbe sent this street seller to sell this guy a tie, and he wore a tie, and he was able to influence this person. So Mamela, that's the story. So but most shluchim on Mitzrayim wear ties because they have to be presentable and with their people, but no one is into the tie. One of my favorite stories of shluchim is I was in 770 once, and a shliach walked in with a very chashuv, a fancy suit, blue pinstripes, looked very fancy, and a proper tie, and he had to daven mincha, and he looked around and he couldn't find the gartel. So he took off his fancy tie and he tied it around his waist and he made it into a gartel. And that for me was beautiful, because if you're really into your tie, you're not going to take it off and make it into a gartel and crease it up. But if the tie is just from the time for presentable, so then davening with a gartel is more important. So V'meila, that's nothing wrong with wearing a tie, but it just became not regular. If a bocher likes wearing a tie, some yeshivas will not allow it because, I don't know, the cheshbonus. We don't disallow ties, as we know, but we don't encourage it because it's not. It became not the regular way of dress amongst us. Just like today, most bochum don't wear caskets. And when it was years ago, a casket was considered like a bad thing to wear. It used to be everyone wore caskets, and it became like fry in a way, and then eventually it became normal again. So these things are just not they're not black and white. It all depends on the current Hasidic regular dress. Yes. Those are jokes that people say. There's many jokes about ties. Some are very inappropriate and not for now. But no, and that's not the reason. That comes from Hakashayans. Second question: do you have to wear socks? So in halacha, it's brought down that any part of your body which is usually covered has to be covered all the time. And if you don't cover that part of your body, it's an issue of tznius. And therefore, that's why we spoke about short pants. That's why it's a problem, because we always wear long pants. Regarding socks, so in halacha, it's brought down in Sfarim that for that reason you have to wear socks because of tznius. However, Rabbi Broin writes that today it became very normal amongst Fruma Yidden to not wear socks, meaning there are religious Jews that don't wear socks. When you walk into somebody's house today and he's walking around without socks, he's often not going to feel uncomfortable, meaning he'll feel comfortable inviting you into his house even though he's not wearing socks. So Rabbi Broin claims that it's not an issue anymore today because it became normal even amongst us to not wear socks, so therefore you don't have to. The pile again, since the majority of people wear socks, the pashas, that's the way to go, but Rabbi Broin claims that it's not mamish necessary. Yeah. If you're in a culture that everybody always wears long sleeves and always wear all the time, then short sleeves would be an issue. But in our culture, we always wear short sleeves. Everyone does, so it's not an issue. I'm answering. Someone that always wears short sleeves, it's not an issue. If you would be in a culture that everybody always wears long sleeves, it might be an issue to go to short sleeves. Wearing undershirts, the sleeveless undershirts. The bachim walk around sometimes. It's a little bit problematic. The reason why it's somewhat okay is because everyone does that all the time. But in Indian, it should not be okay. What about? For an individual to switch, I don't know. I think I see both ways. I see if everybody does wear short sleeves, then I can be part of everybody, or I can look at myself. Since I never do it, I shouldn't do it. I'm not sure what the correct answer is. But I think most people end up having both. So, but if someone his whole life only always wore long sleeves, is there an issue? Possibly. I don't know the answer. Say that, but it's winter, summer means that it's not an issue of sneeze. It just happens because it's cold. I'm wearing a long sleeve, but it's not. And since the fact that I wear in the summer shows that it's not an issue of sneeze by me. Short pants. So that the chayder that didn't change, and that remains. That it's also okay. You can if you're Rabbi blind, I don't think he speaks about. I didn't see him speak about short pants and allowing that. Right, that's what he's asking. So I don't think that changed, and I think amongst Fruma Yidden, if you would come into someone's house and he's wearing underwear, he'd probably feel uncomfortable in front of a guest. He would put on pants, but he's not wearing socks. He would not feel uncomfortable. That's my understanding. Yeah. Even when you sleep, you have to wear pants. Yeah. Socks. That's a big discussion if we wear socks by sleeping or not. Some say dafka not to wear socks when you go to sleep. There's an Indian to have your feet uncovered when you go to sleep. Under a blanket, you can wear nothing also. You can be in your birthday suit, as they say, as long as you're under your blanket the entire time. Question, same question, page. According to Torah, should you be big or small? It's for most of us, most of our big and small doesn't depend on us. Your height and a lot of your size doesn't really depend on you. You have to be healthy. You have to eat normal. You shouldn't be a ben seder or meida zelo b'seva. You shouldn't be stuffing yourself. You shouldn't be starving yourself. You shouldn't be anorexic. Anything which is not normal, you shouldn't be. You have to be normal. You have to be normal. So the body that Hashem gave you, you have to take care of it in a healthy, normal kind of way. Some people, Hashem created them to be naturally big. For them, that is the perfect body that Hashem gave them. For some people, Hashem created them with a naturally small body. That is the perfect body that Hashem gave them. And every person has to maintain his body to the best of his ability. Why did the Rebbe stop Yechidus? As far as we know, because of constraints of time. The Rebbe had Yechidus in the earlier years, till the first, I would say, 25 years of the Rebbe's Nesius. The Rebbe had Yechidus approximately 3 times a week. and every time it was from basically Ma'ariv until whenever it finished, which sometimes would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the morning. And every person that came in had a few minutes with the Rebbe. Some people hear the stories of a half hour, and Pasha, it wasn't feasible. There wasn't enough time for everybody with Yechidus. And in Toshim, in the Lameds, the Rebbe told my grandfather, Rabbi Groner Shalom, the Rebbe told him that from now on he should start, whoever has a important Yechidus, but no more birthday Yechidus. It used to be every birthday Yechidus goes in. My grandfather, he was torn because he wanted the Chassidim to have Yechidus, but he wanted to listen to the Rebbe. So basically, for a long time, he was like telling people, no, you shouldn't go in. He was like fighting with people, but he didn't say the Rebbe said, because I think the Rebbe told him not to say in his name, but the Rebbe told him to minimize it. And that was one of the reasons that people didn't like him, because they felt that he's just deciding not to make Yechidus. Eventually, the Rebbe said it publicly in the Chabad that I'm no more Yechidus, birthday Yechidus. And I think one of the reasons is because somebody wanted Yechidus, and he already had Yechidus that year for his birthday, so he said he has a birthday like 7 months later. My grandfather didn't remember, so he gave him a second time. But the Rebbe remembered, obviously. The Rebbe said, you had your birthday 7 months ago. What's this? So he told the Rebbe, I couldn't get in without otherwise. I had to use a birthday as an excuse. That's why I told this Maskirjus. That's what the Rebbe said, no more birthday Yechidus. We're connected to that story. Groups there were group birthdays. There was a few other things that continued, but basically it's a matter of time, and slowly it became more. That was more and more pressed for time, being Magiya the Sichis and answering letters and doing what the Rebbe does, and therefore eventually it would basically stop completely in the early mems. And there's a whole bunch of individual people that they were zeichet to have Yechidus, and afterwards also. There was a big rabbi in Philadelphia. What was his name? Rabbi Yolis. A big part of the book is about that also. So apparently he had Yechidus even later, and also the Zion's brothers, they officially had Yechidus later, but as a whole it was a matter of time, and that's the way it stopped. What is the point of a Rebbe? Why can't we just serve Hashem? Who's the first person that asked this question? Koirach. Koirach is the first one that asked the question, why do you need a Moshe Rabbeinu? Madua tisnasu kal Hashem? Everyone's holy, everyone can serve Hashem. And the answer to Koirach, the famous Sikha, the Rebbe, Chelik Daled, it's one of the fundamental Sikhs to understand what a Rebbe is about. And the point is that serving Hashem requires a Rebbe, because even though when it comes to Peil Mamish, we seemingly could do a Peil Mamish, but we also have to have a chayis, a Rebbe'dekait. The words of the Rebbe, Maisim Toivim Umeirim. It's not just the action, just to be kavana. And since, as great as we might think of ourselves, we're obviously limited in our understanding, in our feelings, and those things, the Rebbe is the one that can uplift us and guide us. So that's the basic answer of Chachel Daled. That comes to action, you could do what you have to do without a Rebbe, but in order to really connect to Hashem, the way Hashem wants us to connect Him, with our Seichel Amidus, Hashem appoints a Rebbe to be able to give us that opportunity, that guidance of us developing ourselves and reaching levels that are beyond our regular capacity, but not just the actions, but the Seichel Amidus, the excitement and the warmth and the Geschmack in Yiddishkeit. Another detail is connected to the instructions of the generation. Every generation has what's unique to that generation, and our people like us would never be able to know on our own what we have to do. So comes the Rebbe and guides us. In our generation, the Rebbe teaches us. We're the generation of the bring Mashiach, so therefore it's our job to go out into the world and make a dirah b'tachtonim to reach as far as we can. That's our main mission, so that's what the Rebbe teaches us. In Russia, the Friedrich Rebbe taught the Yidden about Mesiras Nefesh, about going around in that kind of way. So basically, it's that's another reason, which is connected to the first reason. Basically, a kind of connection of Hashem to the people that most people would not be able to reach on their own. Question, what's in Area 51? Your brain. Those that don't know, there's a place in Nevada, which is called Area 51, which is, Nevada? I'm sorry? Nevada, They say it's aliens. So basically it's a place that belongs to the U.S. government, and it's officially very top secret, and they claim that there are aliens that are there, or that they're researching aliens. Apparently someone that worked there in that facility claims that's what they're doing. They're researching aircraft that they retrieved from aliens, but apparently that was debunked, so it became a big mystery what it is. The American government claims they use it there to develop or to do research on new aircraft. There's different spy planes and drones and different things that they flew out from there. People in the area claim to have seen these funny UFOs, unidentified flying objects, but doesn't look like regular planes, which could be different things that the U.S. government has been trying over there. So it's a lot of conspiracy. The pastors, my understanding, is one of the Americans' facilities where they do research for certain things. Question: does the Pope, I don't understand with the harichas, actually have anything of ours? It's not the question of the Pope personally, it's in the Vatican. The Vatican in Italy, they have over there treasures and treasures. They have museums, and they have many floors underground where they have ancient manuscripts and a whole bunch of things from a whole bunch of different countries that they have for over thousands of years. And the question is what they have. So there are people that claim the menorahs there, are people that claim the other Kelim Beis HaMikdash are there. Why can't we ask them? Because they don't want to share. They don't want to say. It's all top secret. There's a video. I didn't watch it. Sonia, did you watch the video from the Rabbi Gold, Yoel Gold? So he claims that he saw the menorah over there, right? That's what someone says.
Like in the video, there's like guys
I saw what I saw, but he didn't actually say. Some people claim that the menorah is not there. It's all. There's people that did lots of research on it. Some claim that there's nothing there. There's no menorah there. Something there is. We don't know what's there. That's the bottom line. They have definitely manuscripts of the Rambam and others, things that don't exist anywhere else, or Rishonim. But what? Because they're showing what they stole, and the moment they admit that they have it, then the Yidden are going to come and say, "Give it back to us." So they admit, and this we got from here, whatever. They don't want to show what they have. Like most people, you have a treasure. You don't want to share with anybody. You have to know how the whole government of Rome and the Pope works. It's not like a government. They're like their own entity. They're in charge of themselves, basically. We did not play it this year on the fast. No, we had other videos of playing. If antis and mishechistim both truly want to do what the Rebbe wants, why do they fight so much? And who's correct? And is it me? No, the Rebbe does not want Chassidim to fight. The answer to this question, in my opinion, is based on the famous sikha about Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva, we know, had many students, 24,000 students, and they all passed away in the short time between Pesach and Lag BaOmer, Shavuos, the different ways of how to say the story. Either way, the Rebbe famously asks, how is it possible? The Gemara asks what happened, and the Gemara says the reason why they all passed away, 24,000 people in such a short amount of time, is very, very terrifying. And the Gemara says, they didn't give each other respect. They were not honoring each other. And the Rebbe, that's what the Gemara says. And the Rebbe asks in the Sikha that Rabbi Akiva is the one that said, you have to love your fellow Jew. How can it be that Dafka, his Talmidim, that heard this teaching, they didn't respect each other? And the Rebbe explains in the Sikha that because they looked at each other and said, you're a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva. And you know what Rabbi Akiva says. And how come you're doing different? Because each Talmud understood that my way of understanding Rabbi Akiva is the correct way. And what he's saying is wrong. And therefore, random people, no. But you, haytachem. So therefore, it's al derech when it comes to, let's say, mishechistim and anti. So many chedesichis and Igros Kodesh have the name, a word ziyah on it, right? Ziyah means which is something we say after someone that passed away. So mishechistim will not touch a chedesichis or Igros that has ziyah on it. However, they're going to use svarim from Art Scroll, from Oizohodor. They'll use these svarim from the other people that are misnagin. That these people, not only do they say the Rebbe is Ziyah, they say even worse things about the Rebbe. Rahman al-Islam. And yet, these mishechistim will use those svarim. Why? Because, they don't know, they're Stam misnagin. But you're a Lubavitcher and you're going against the Rebbe, so how can I use your stuff? So that was Talmid Rabbi Akiva. They looked at each other and they said, and because I love you, I need to get you on board. I have to show you how wrong you are. I can't just let it go. I have to be true about it. So it's a whole arichas in the Sikha, and it's a few places look at the Sikha that talks about it. And this is what's happening over here. The mishechistim and the antis and all the other groups within Lubavitch, everyone thinks that what they're doing is 100% right, and in a certain sense, they are all right. However, each one looks at the other one as he's 100% wrong. And therefore, I'm so against them, and I have to show them that they're wrong, and they're distorting Chabad, they're saying it the wrong kind of way, and each one does its best. So that's what's happening. What should happen, what I think should happen is that every person has to do whatever they think is right, but they should respect everybody else and understand that even though I think it's the right thing, what you're doing is wrong, but since I know that what you're doing is what you think is the right thing, so you'll do what you do in your place, I'll do what I'll do in my place. Rabbi Shimon, the Shliach in Chicago, was here, verbrengt, when was it this year? He verbrengt earlier this year, and he said, so he says a story that he said it over here. He said it somewhere else. He said a story that he has a camp. So he told the staff that one of the main things, two things he told them. Every camper has to walk away knowing about Mashiach and about the Rebbe, something like that. And one of the staff told him, I was by a different shliach in a different city, and he told me that you can tell the campers anything, but don't talk about Mashiach. So Rabbi Shimon, being a true Jew, in my opinion, Rabbi Shimon told the staff that the Rebbe sent shluchim to different places. And that shliach, that's his shluchus, and he's doing what he thinks the Rebbe wants to do. And he didn't say that he thinks it's wrong. He says, he's probably right in his makam shluchus. That's how he has to deal with his people. And in my makam shluchus, the Rebbe sent me, so the Rebbe knows how I work. That means I have to do it. So that's what I think is the right approach. Everyone is doing the right thing, and there's but derech klal, people don't step on each other's toes, but derech klal, I mean, you don't have to. You don't have to step on someone else's toes. You can do what you have to do. You don't bump into other people, and just do what you think is the right thing with your guidance of your mashpia, and respect everybody else, realizing that they all want to do what the Rebbe wants, and therefore they deserve your respect. Even though in my Avodas Hashem, I'm going to follow my understanding of what the Rebbe, what my mashpia tells me. Yeah. Who told you it was very clean then? That means that there was dirt there then.
Yes, the Rebbe will make sure that it's clean.
When the Rebbe walked by, they made it clean. But till the Rebbe walked by, it was a big mess then also. And the same thing now. In the shvil is always clean. In the shvil, it's always clean. Same exact thing like it was then. In the shul, wherever the Rebbe walked was clean, and wherever the Rebbe didn't walk. But the Rebbe didn't tell Piteva see that they didn't clean. Same thing. If I believe this person really wants to do what the Eibishter wants, what the Rebbe wants, then I'm going to respect him all the way. And that's what they all said. That what they said is that you're going against Rabbi Akiva. That's exactly what they were saying. They were saying that you can't take it such an extreme. They said that there's a certain amount that I can allow you to disagree, but what you're saying is completely against Rabbi Akiva, and therefore I can't. Yes, that's all bizarre, no? They learned that each person, that's exactly what you're saying. They said that there's a limit to how much I can tolerate somebody else, and this is already non-tolerable, and therefore I can't respect it. And therefore he's out, and therefore we all die. That's what they all thought. Each thought my way is the only way, correct, and your way is completely wrong. And therefore, I think, again, my understanding is they all believe that they're all Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. That they believe. Question is, what the derech of Peil Mamish is. If you believe that he's dedicated to the Rebbe, in my opinion, respect him. They're not chasidim of the Rebbe. They're not chasidim of the Rebbe. That's all. If they're not a chassid of the Rebbe, then I don't respect them. First of all, J.J. Hecht, all of a sudden, the famous J.J. Hecht, he had a Goyso worker that he would pay for his taxi to go to church every Sunday. So he would pay for his taxi to go to church every Sunday. He made sure that his workers go to do their religion. That's extreme what you're saying, that he respected what he wanted to do. But again, I'm talking about Talmidei Rabbi Akiva. Question, if you're a chassid of the Rebbe, then I respect you no matter what. If you live your life according to the Rebbe, you're Ychidas, Rambam, Miskafet, Avidas, Atfilah, Mitzvah, then if you say Ziyah, Shlita, or whatever, Shlita, Ziyah, or any combination you want, it doesn't bother me. That's my opinion. But if you're a Muslim, you're not chassid of the Rebbe, then I can't respect you. If you're a Muslim and a chassid of the Rebbe, then I'm in a dilemma. But then I think I'll probably respect him. If he's a Muslim and a chassid of the Rebbe, then I'll respect him. I think so. But how are you? It's fast. Got a Taliban Muslim. Chas v'shalom. No, I think that's where it boils down to. I believe that if you, it's Rabbi Akiva and downwards, and these people, that you can't argue. I mean, again, some people will argue. I think that is wrong. I think that these people, if you get to know them, any side that you're on, whether the extreme antis, extreme mishechistim, you get to know them, their life is Rebbe. And that's what they talk about all the time. So therefore, I think you have to respect them. And again, I have to do my shlichus the way I understand. You do the way you understand. I have to respect you and not knock you. I can argue about it, I can mention, discuss what I think is right and wrong. I can try to convince you, but I'm not going to put you down because you don't accept what I said. And if you sit good with each one of them, you'll be convinced that they're both right. You never know. If you sit by each one of them, they might convince you. Huh? And it's very possible. It could be that the Rebbe wants that you should be all these different roles, like Rabbi Shimon said. The Rebbe wants this shliach to talk about Mashiach all the time. He wants shliach not to. But they shouldn't argue with each other. He said, no, perfect. What you're doing is very good in your Makam HaShlichus. And the sad reality is that the people are stepping in each other's toes. No, you're doing wrong in your Makam HaShlichus. And he tells you back over here. That's where the problems begin. If you live and let live, then it can be very nice. I'm not worth it, but someone's damaging. I have nothing to do. Right now, there's a fire raging in the Agri. What's going to happen tomorrow in the Postville Agri? I don't know. Our job is to learn Torah and do what you have to do. If someone's going to disturb, you'll disturb. I'll do the best I can to make you stop disturbing. I won't let you in my place necessarily. I think that I believe that he believes he's doing the right thing. And therefore I respect him. And I'll learn from him to do what I believe is the right thing, to do it the same chayas that he has when he's doing, I should do what I'm doing. Now that's an if I'm on that side, and then I think it could all work. I think the derech klal doesn't hurt my shlichus. And someone comes and says, and I can explain this, and what he really thinks, and that's it. If one of my Chabados tells me, Haytochen, that person said so, or no, a fellow Babasha said so and so. So I'll do my best to explain that he understands that the Rebbe is kach, and I understand like this, and the Bela, he's saying what he feels, and I feel differently, but I still respect him for what he thinks he's doing right thing. Next question. Oh, sorry. The Levim in Mitzrayim did not have to do any work. So why are they obligated to do the Seder and the Haggadah? The Rebbe speaks about this in a number of places. And look at the Siches Chelek Chaf on page 240. The Rebbe talks here about the Sicha and Vayechi, about the fact that Levi and Yosef did not carry Yosef's order out of Mitzrayim. And the Rebbe goes on to talk about Shevet Levi Bechlal, and the Rebbe says that the Ramban says that the reason why Shevet Levi did not have to work in Mitzrayim is because Kivyachol Pari understood that every community has to have some leaders or teachers, so Pari allowed they should have their leaders and teachers. But it was all part of this general group of the minority of Jews that were Betzim slaves. So even though the Shevet Levi didn't work as slaves in the physical sense, they were part of the Jewish community in Egypt, which were all in general considered in slavery. Just their way of being slaves was by directing and helping their fellow Jews, teaching them Torah and stuff like that. So therefore, they're part of it as well, and this is the Rebbe's beer basically in short. In one word, it's Kol Yisrael Adim Zeh B'Zeh. We're all committed to each other, we're all mixed together. But here the Rebbe has a lot more issues to explain how it's part of, it's one solid group. It's like when someone's working very hard. Is my nose also working? My nose is participating, and my body's working. My nose is part of it as well. My nose is not actually suffering the same way my back is suffering from the back labor. So too, Klal Yisrael was in this together. So Shevet Levi is like the nose. They didn't feel the pain, but they're also participating in the same kind of way, and therefore they can also say celebrate the Seder and the Haggadah. There's more pratim, but that's I think the Nekuda B'Kitzur. Is it allowed for someone to buy a seltzer for a teacher and then mark it down by their cousin's name? No. If you buy a seltzer for your teacher, then you should make sure to pay for it yourself. And if you don't like your teacher that well, which is fine, then don't buy him any seltzers and don't make someone else pay for it. Can I listen to AI female voice for music? This was actually a question recently in the weekly Farbrengen. They have Rabbi Chaim Hillel Raskin from Rehovot. He has a weekly question. So this question came up over there, and he basically says that B'Pashtus it's Asur, We spoke about this a few times already. When it comes to Bechlal, any kind of female singing today that you're going to be listening to, if it's not live, it's AI. AI meaning it's artificial, it's not the real thing. You're hearing a recording. What's a recording? You're hearing electricity, electronics. So we said that there were Rabbanim that said that taka is not an issue if you don't know who the woman is. But most Rabbanim say that even if you don't know who the woman is, the reality is, and you hear a woman's voice, it's ma'oired hirur, it causes kind of feelings that are not permitted. A person causes machshavas zaros and things like that, even without knowing any images. And based on that, they apply the same thing to a female voice that's completely AI, completely artificial, and there's no source whatsoever. And they bring that the hero, the concept of having machshavas zaros is also min ha-Torah, and therefore they extend this to any kind of listening, to any kind of female voice, which could lead to any kind of machshavas zaros. What? If music made by AI is considered non-Jewish, I would say so, because I would say the majority of AI is based off what they feed from the world, and the majority of the world's music is definitely non-Jewish, and they're producing music which is based on their sources, which is the same non-Jewish taste. Yeah, I would think so. If you tell them to make a Jewish song, and then the AI Kivyachal listens to Jewish music and bases off that a Jewish style music, then maybe you can argue. But I think it's very hard to control the AI and tell them which music to listen to. The AI music models, you can tell them a Jewish style, but at the end of the day, they're taking all the music in the world that they have access to, which I would say 99% is non-Jewish, and then they're producing from that, and they'll Kivyachal decide what they think is considered the Jewish style. But the Pasha is coming from a non-Jewish source. I have a friend that's big into Nigunim, and he told me that he asked AI to make Nigunim for him, and he said it doesn't work out. Never comes out like a real Nigun. Yes?
Also, I heard another story that when it comes to AI
they base the voice on an actual person that you might know how she looks, and that can for sure lead to machshavas zaros. Okay? It's not completely artificial. Same idea I said about the non-Jewish. Okay. Question: Why did Chabad lose its traits, such as love for another Jew, Yiddish, Russian, Hasidim, willing to lose his life? So the Bacher is asking that Chabad has traits. The Bacher names four such traits: love for another Jew, Yiddish, Russian, and Mesiras Nefesh. And the Bacher assumes or claims that Chabad lost these traits, and he wants to know why. So first of all, there's a very big difference between the first and last thing on the list, loving a fellow Jew, and having Mesiras Nefesh, willing to lose your life, and Yiddish and Russian. Russian is not a Chabad trait at all. Russian is a language that the Chassidim in Russia spoke, because that was where they lived. Yiddish is a bit different. Yiddish is also a language, but Yiddish we spoke about that the Rebbe does want Chassidim to speak Yiddish. But love for another Jew and Chassidim... I'm sorry. The Rebbe does want us to speak Yiddish. I'm sorry, I said wrong. I misspoke. The Rebbe spoke in the Sikha about the importance of speaking in Yiddish. Yeah. In general, there's a Sikha in Chelik Aleph. The Sikha is Chelik Aleph Mishpatim. What? It's in the older Q&As. You can look it up. But it's in Chelik Chaf Aleph Mishpatim in the Isofis. And then there's a story that I said a few times, but not for now. But the big answer to the question is, let's follow. There was a chassid. The answer to the question goes like this: Rabbi Yisrael Nevler was a chassid, a very strong, proud Lubavitcher chassid, and there was a time where he was living together with non-Lubavitch chassidim at the same place, whether it was in Tashkent or whether it was in Poking, and the story goes that a non-Lubavitcher chassid asked him a similar question, while telling him that you guys claim the chassidus has all these traits, and I see the chassidim, and they don't have these traits, and they lost these traits. A little bit of a different question, but I think the answer will be enough for what he answered. So he responded that there was one time a community that appointed a new rabbi, and the rabbis in those times always wore a top hat, like a hat and jacket. Today everyone wears a hat and jacket, then it was like a unique type of hat. And this rabbi, when he was appointed to the new community, he walks into the shul the first Shabbos, and lo and behold, he took off his hat and put it on the table. And everybody took a breath. What is that? That's like, imagine the Rebbe walks into Fabrengen and the Rebbe takes off his hat and jacket. How would the Chassidim react? That was the reaction of the community. This is the rabbi taking off his hat and jacket. They're the same idea. And then the rabbi started speaking. And he said a story. And this is a story within the story within the story. And he says that there was Russia and Germany were at war, one of the many times. And the Russians, they had their Kozakin. They had their troops of soldiers called the Kozakin. I said the story in the past, the Baruch corrected me that the Kozakin were not the soldiers of the Russian army. They were hired by the Russian army. They were their own. The reality is that the Kozakin were was a name for this group of warriors that were known to be fearless and courageous and powerful. And whenever the Germans went into battle, they kept losing. Because the Kozakin, they just had such experience. There was these soldiers that they knew how to ride their horses and use their weapons so well. They were trained from a very young age, and therefore everybody was all the German soldiers were terrified from these Kozakin. One day, the German general collects his troops and he says, "Today our mission in battle is to capture one live Cossack. That's it. I want a whole bunch of you to surround one of them. I don't care how many casualties we suffer. We just have to get one live Cossack." So that's a fairly easy mission to accomplish. And they went ahead in the next battle. They were successful. They lost some of their men, but they were able to catch a live Cossack with his horse, with his weapon, and they bring him back to the German camp. Bring him back to the German camp. General calls for a lineup. All the soldiers are standing in line, and then he brings the Cossack. And he takes the Cossack and he has two of the soldiers walk him down the aisles. He walks amongst all the soldiers. Then he takes the Cossack's sword and he has somebody walk down all the aisles. And then he takes the Cossack's horse and he has somebody walk it down all the aisles between all the soldiers. When that's all done, the German general gets up and he says, "Men, this is a person with a weapon and a horse. We also are people. We also have weapons. We have horses. Stop being so terrified from the Kozakin. They're just like us. You have to know how to separate between the three things. And once you have that in your mind, you'll be able to understand that we have the power to overpower them in battle." This was the story that the rabbi said. And then he explained. He said, "You guys look at me as a rabbi. I'm only questions. You can ask me about Basar B'cholov. Only questions and kashrus, questions and shilas like that. I'm letting you know I'm a person just like you. Look, my hat and jacket's off, I'm a regular guy. Come talk to me about anything you want to talk about. I'm open to talk about. We could talk about sholent. We could talk about the weather. I'm one of you guys. I also know halacha, but don't be afraid of me. Don't have this approach. Don't have this fear of the rabbi." Yisrael Neville concluded by saying that Chabad and Chabad Hasidus and Chabad Hasidim, you have to know how to differentiate. Chabad Hasidus is pure. Chabad Hasidus is love of your fellow Jew. And you can say, speaks Yiddish. And Chabad Hasidus are Hasidim that are willing to risk their lives for Yiddishkeit. The people are people, and the people, unfortunately, have a Yitzhahara, and over time, it becomes more and more that the Yitzhahara mixes in different areas, and therefore, some traits, such as these, end up getting lost. But it's not that Chabad Hasidus loses. Certain people don't, but if you're around enough Hasidim, you're going to find that many true Hasidim, do have all these traits, they still have them till today, and those that don't have it, they don't claim that it's official the Chabad Shita. They just fail, for them it's too hard. There's a lot more to talk about this particular question, but we will stop for now.